have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mandie Brice, and I am the host of the Bold Moves podcast. This is episode number 87, and I have the pleasure of speaking with a bright young man from Milwaukee who was introduced to me by Hamad Fadayafar, who is an interviewee from way back in the beginning. I think one of the first maybe 10 or 15 interviews was mine with him. So go back and check that out if you haven't already. But today is not about Hamad, even though we bring him up a few times. It is about Quentin Allums, who is somebody who has gone into his own business in various aspects of tech after being told that he was not smart enough to go into tech. So I always love stories of triumph. I don't think we shared it in my interview with my now husband, but he didn't make the 6th grade basketball team because the coach told him he could teach him to play basketball but couldn't teach him how to grow, and then he ended up playing for Marquette. So those are my favorite types of stories, so I'm excited for you to hear right now my interview with Quentin. Enjoy! All right, welcome to the Bold Moves podcast. I am with Quentin Allums, who is somebody that Hamad Fadayafar from one of the first episodes recommended, another person. So I'm super excited to hear your story. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
My pleasure. So of course, you know, the name of the show is called Bold Moves, and you probably know some of Hamad's bold moves, but I'd like to hear your story and why, you think that I thought you're a good candidate and Hamad thought you're a good candidate to be on the show.
Yeah. So it was kind of weird actually. So we went to, we were crossing paths. We went to an event in Milwaukee called #MKE, and they're like, yo, you got to meet Q. Yo, you have to meet Hamad. And it just kept going like that. Kept seeing him, but I never actually made contact. But finally got to sit down and I heard about his story. He's an awesome dude. So I'm super pumped that I got to meet him. And then I'm on the show now. But essentially I was unhappy. I was working a full-time job. I had just graduated college. I could probably send you a link to a video, and it was when I was working that job and I was miserable. And I'm like, I cannot be employed by somebody else. I can't do this anymore. And then eventually I just decided to quit. I made some amazing contacts and I started learning how to code. I started learning how to 3D model, and I started my social media agency on the side so that I can live and have the money to live. And then as I was learning all these virtual reality things, I started that company there, and eventually I decided to combine them. It's been a lot of fun, been learning a lot. It's been hectic. It's been crazy. Things keep falling apart, but I would not trade it in for anything because I am happy as compared to when I was working that full-time job.
Well, definitely send the video so that we can put it in the show notes. And yeah, I mean, living is nice. So it's good that you've got a way to do that in the meantime. It sounds like, I think a lot of people can identify with the at least feeling that you had before where you were miserable working a job. Was it in what you studied? Was it in your field?
Actually, no. So the weird thing is before I graduated, I hated school. I was a sociologist. I found out really late that I wanted to work in technology. So I started working with Milwaukee, which is a really big social architecture firm, they like to call themselves. Basically, they just throw cool events in Milwaukee. Started working with them, fell in love with the city. That opened up a lot of doors to a lot of cool people. And then from there, I started working with a virtual reality company and a wearable tech company. And that's when I just absolutely fell in love with technology. And then I was offered a job for both of them, but I decided to decline it because I'm like, I don't want to fall in love with this position. And of course I didn't. It was shit. I hated it. But when I was ready, I did end up quitting that job. So it wasn't anything that I wanted to do, but that was purposely set up that way.
Okay, interesting. So you, right out of college, got a job outside of your major, outside of your plans. And then, so was it a separate one? Did you work for Milwaukee, at my understanding, and then work for the other company in tech?
Yeah, so I went from Milwaukee to another marketing company, to another marketing company, to another marketing company, and then virtual reality, and then wearable technology. So there was a bunch of stuff in between, but that's just kind of where it led to. And then I just decided to go drive cars for a living kind of. So it was terrible. Absolutely.
Is that Uber or Lyft or?
It was Zipcar.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. I basically just drove cars and made sure they were okay and everything like that. But it was terrible.
Well, I don't think anyone can say that you didn't give being an employee a shot, because it sounds like
Yeah,
you paid your dues in that department at several places and it just wasn't for you. So that's super cool that you're making it work. What kind of stuff are you doing in your companies now? I mean, I think social media agency is probably the easiest one to guess and assume that you're doing social media for other businesses, but what about the rest?
Yeah, so I like to say that. So my company is Mad Genie. So Mad Genie, as in mad genius, like you're super super smart. That's the vibe that I'm going for.
Okay.
But I like to say that we exist on two fronts. So one, we have that creative agency where we do creative projects like social media, 360 video, any 3D renderings, things like that for businesses. And then
Sure.
on the other side, we have that social technology aspect. And then right there, I can't like give a bunch of details, but
Sure.
right now what we're working on is essentially an open source platform to improve learning, to make learning go faster and encourage lifelong learning. And you'd be doing that through virtual reality, augmented reality, and learning through simulations, things like that.
That's super cool. Assuming you don't know much
Yeah, it's
about
exciting.
me. I believe it. Yeah. I used to be a teacher for 6 years, actually. So I would be interested in learning a lot more about that. And I am in Silicon Valley now, and I live like a quarter mile from, what is it called? Udacity. Are you familiar with that company? It's
Yeah.
like you get the micro degrees. So I think it's really cool what is happening in education and just the potential that there is. And I think with people growing up now in such a digital age, it's almost silly to expect them to be able to focus on a teacher at a blackboard or, you know, a paper textbook where nothing's going on but words. Because I think all of our attention spans are shrinking rapidly.
Yeah, and that's something that I run into a lot. I agree.
So if someone's listening to this and is intrigued as I am about checking out what you're doing, where would they find you on social media, your website, and so on, so they can kind of follow you and see what you're doing?
Yeah, so I would say a good place to find us, of course, is our website, and that's going to be madgenie.io. And in there, you'll see all of our creative agency stuff. And then as well, there's a tab up top that's going to say Project Alice. And that's the virtual reality platform that we're working on now. There's not a lot of information because I can't really disclose that right now.
Sure.
But then outside of that, if you want to follow me on my social media, on my personal social media platforms, everything, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Whale, I'm literally everywhere because I like to dabble, but everywhere that's just going to be Q Allums. So my first letter of my first name and then my last name.
What is Whale? I've never even heard of it.
Oh, Whale is my favorite. So Whale, it's only for iOS right now. Essentially, It's like Quora actually just released a video answer platform, but it's like Quora. So you ask a question and then you answer it back in video format, but it's like you have direct access to high level influencers, big time. Like I met what's his name? The guy who founded Twitch is the dude that made this, right? And he's just on there. You have direct access to him. The guy that founded Reddit, like just all these top minds. It is fantastic. And
oh, that's cool.
yeah, I'm creating content all the time without actually having to create content. So it's great.
Yeah, I've liked that about Quora. I didn't know about it. I somehow had signed up for an account and I kept getting emails saying so-and-so is following you on Quora. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And then they held an event. I live like a mile and a half from their headquarters. And they invited, apparently they needed more people that were influencers in the beauty industry because they were getting an increase in questions about that. But I think because the platform started out so tech dominant, they didn't have a lot of like makeup artists there to answer questions. So they threw a party for us and gave us wine and food and taught us how to use it. And it was pretty cool. So
That's
this
sweet.
Whale thing sounds really cool too. So I'll have to look that up.
Definitely do. And anyone that's watching, and it's really tech heavy right now too. So I know they're trying to get outside of that. So that could be good for you.
Awesome. Well, I am always so grateful whenever I get to talk to different people because I always learn things. Usually I just get inspired, but now I have something exciting to do after I'm back from my honeymoon.
Good.
Super cool. All right. So one question that I love to ask is, what is the scariest thing you've ever done?
Uh, See, that's a tough one. Um, I would say I'm scared all the time. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm literally terrified all the time. Um, but the scariest thing that I've ever done, at least like within like the past 2 years, I would say was quitting that job. And I quit and maybe like I kept telling myself, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. Okay, let's jump.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. And it was just so difficult. And then my life just kind of just went to shit and it fell apart. All these things kept going wrong. Like my girlfriend broke up with me. I got in a car crash. Like my dog got sick. They're
Oh
just
my
over
gosh. You're
and
not
over
kidding.
and over and over again. And like, I'm just like, I cannot do this anymore. And up to that
Sure.
point, I was terrified. But right when I met that point, like everything just went away and I just jumped and here I am. Leading up to that was very scary, but the jumping I wouldn't say was scary, which is really weird looking back. But
Yeah, you'd think
yeah,
it would maybe be the reverse.
yeah.
So since you had obviously quit several jobs before then, was it because you did you have other things lined up every time you quit previously?
So if I could go back, I would have told myself to focus on learning within those positions, focus on making relationships within those positions instead of jumping and jumping and jumping. I was so focused on building my resume and
Sure.
looking good on paper that I learned, but I didn't learn as much as I could. So I did have things lined up and I
Sure.
jumped. I was a terrible employee and I'll say that flat out. And I do apologize to everyone that has employed me. But I did bring value, but I learned from that. So I had things lined up and I just kind of jumped and jumped and jumped and jumped until I decided what I wanted to do.
Okay. So then obviously not having something lined up other than your own plan, which was sink or swim, is what made that scarier. All right, that's fair. I can identify with that for sure. If you were going to give yourself advice
Yeah, it
other
was
than
terrifying.
obviously what you said you reflected on, how would you tell someone to push past fear if they were facing a scary decision or a scary action they were about to take? What would you tell them on how to make that easier?
Oh, that's a good question. So something I like to do, and I still do it to this day, is that when I'm feeling good, like when I'm feeling happy, like probably after this podcast, I'll leave myself advice like, yo, Q, you did a good job, or you could have did this better, but whatever. Like you can do this, not, and not. This is what you want. Be real with yourself. I would say leave yourself advice, leave yourself notes, say affirmations all the time, but just be realistic with yourself. If you want something, then that fear should not get in the way at all.
I love that. So what format do you leave this advice? Do you like record it? Do you write it down? All of the above?
Valid question. So I would say all of the above. So I do a lot in Snapchat memories, and then I'll save it in there if you know what that is.
Yep.
And then I write a lot, and then I'm also building an app. So I just for myself pretty much.
Yeah.
But I record something every single day, and then it feeds back to me at the end of the week and shows me how I've made progress and what I've said. So that's how I'm doing it now.
That's really cool. That was gonna be my next question, is to ask you how and when you went over the advice you left yourself and to keep track of it. So that's cool.
Yes.
It'd almost be like the Facebook memories where it says like, on this day last year, you could know. This is my cat, by the way. He needs attention.
Was it a cat or a dog?
It's a giant, it's a very large
Nice.
cat. And he makes his appearance in plenty of podcasts because he just needs attention all the time.
Yeah, my cat's tiny.
He's 22 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, he's big. So that I really like that idea. I think that's fantastic. I'd love to hear what advice you give yourself after the show.
Yeah.
what you're gonna send yourself.
For sure. I'll send it over.
Awesome. I look forward to it. So this is something that for a lot of people changes. Some people don't know, and I promise no judgment if your answer is I don't know. But I'm wondering what your purpose is, if you know.
So I just made a video. Hamad asked me on Whale if I could give my 30-year-old self some advice. What would I say? And I thought that was an amazing question. I'll connect it back. Sorry.
No.
And I was looking back at my 18-year-old self and my 16-year-old self. Like I would say my purpose was different. What I wanted was different. So Right now, I would say it's to be happy, to be present, and to grow, because I think that's what our
Okay.
20s are for. But I do think that's going to change. I do want to impact people's lives with technology.
Sure.
I do want to connect people with technology and to help people follow their dreams and to preach happiness and to live happiness, to live happy. But it's just to be present and to be happy and to share that experience, I would say.
Okay. And I guess because you're male, this question is less offensive, but how old are you? Because it's that you look very young. I'm sure you've
I
heard that
know, I
before.
know.
And I'm like, did he work at all these places for like 10 minutes? And then I'm like, well, it sounds like 30 minutes is in the past, or 30 years old is in the past, which I wouldn't have guessed. So.
That is awesome. Um, I am 23 years old, so I worked a
Okay.
lot through college. I wasn't big on school because I wasn't learning. So I was working a lot of internships, multiple at a time through college.
Okay. I was going to say, I thought that when Hamad introduced us, he said something about you being young. And so, okay, it's good to know. So he asked you to give advice to yourself in 7 years now.
Yeah,
That's an interesting
it is. It
perspective.
is.
It lines up with a question, sort of, which maybe Hamad stole the idea from me. We'll have to
Mm,
talk with him. But
yeah.
I ask everyone on my podcast and just ask people this in general. Usually I save it till the end of the podcast, but it makes sense right now. And that is, if 8-year-old Q could look into a crystal ball and look at 23-year-old Q, on a scale of 1 to 11, how excited would you be to see what you
Oh,
experienced?
that's a good
And
question.
thank you.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I would say you said 1 to 11. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Obviously.
That's valid. That's valid. I would say 11 because at that time I was very interested in engineering and programming. And
Okay.
then after that, I was told that I wasn't smart enough and I kind of went into writing and things like that. So I would say 11. I would have been ecstatic. Like virtuality is real. Like, yeah, 11, 11.
Yeah. So back 15 years ago, then, I'm trying to think how realistic that was at this point, or at that point in history.
So
Was
15
that
years
how
ago.
on your radio, how on your radar was virtual reality?
I remember watching a movie called Blank Check. I believe it was released in 1993. So that's the year I was born, actually. I remember watching that movie and he puts on this big clunky headset
Sure.
and like he's doing all these things, but virtuality back then was crap, absolute crap. Like you'd put
Right.
this thing on and you'd probably puke from motion sickness all the time.
Okay.
But I remember thinking that's the coolest thing. I want that much money. I want to be able to do that every single day. And then after
Yeah.
that, it kind of just dissipated. So it wasn't realistic. It wasn't on my radar. I just knew that I liked technology and I liked cool things at that age.
Okay. Because you're not the first person who's somehow in the tech space that I've interviewed. And it's funny that there are plenty of people who, when they answer that question, whatever they're doing now didn't even exist when they were 8. Like it was so
Yeah.
far-fetched. Like it's a new position that just recently came up. So it's always interesting to me to hear how that goes. But it sounds like he wouldn't be that surprised though, right, little Q? Or do you think the
I
discouragement you got from whoever told you you weren't smart enough was impactful enough to shock you looking into the crystal ball?
It happened after that. So the discouragement happened after I was 8. So I would have been ecstatic, and I think nothing would have stopped me after that.
That's
It would
awesome.
have been a good thing, but it's okay. It worked out.
Everything happens for a reason, right? You just maybe would have
Exactly.
taken a more direct path if you had the crystal ball.
Yeah, exactly.
That's perfect. So where did you go to school?
So I went to college at Cardinal Stritch University. Sorry, that took a while.
That's all
And
right.
then I'm from Minnesota.
Okay, got it. And then you're currently living in Milwaukee. Are you planning to stay in Milwaukee, or are you going to
Oh.
go to one of the like tech cities like where I am, or I think Austin's an up and coming
hmm
tech
So
place?
Milwaukee is one of like it's the love of my life. I
Okay.
absolutely love Milwaukee just because when I was 21, like I was in meetings with the mayor. I was in meetings with the box owners, like pitching ideas, and like that
Yeah.
would not happen in New York City. That would
Right.
not happen in California, like nowhere. So I love it. And I do believe that within 5 years, it's going to blow up. And that's why I am going to stay here, because I want to be a part of that tech scene. I want to be a part of the growth. Like I want to be one of the guys that they come to when they want to implement IoT technology into the streets and to the toilets that tell you that you're pregnant, that you needed to like go get checked or anything like that. Like I want to be that guy. And I think being here now will help me achieve that.
That makes sense. Yeah, if your prediction is correct, it sounds like you're setting yourself up well for that. Now, you used a term that I am not familiar with. You said IoT technology, and I noticed that your website is .io, and I was going to go back to that too. Can you school me on that?
So .io, don't read too much into that. It just means input, output. It's just like an alternate for .com.
Sure.
IoT technology, why am I blanking on the actual term? Essentially, it's objects communicating with other objects through data. So in the streets, you have sensors, let's say, and there's a parking app. And those sensors communicate to that app that then tell you that there's a parking spot open, or there's not a parking spot open, or there's sensors in the toilet that tell you that you need to go get this and that checked, or that you're pregnant, things like that. But it's objects communicating with other objects that then communicate and dissect that information to then give to the human. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Fortunately, since I've been out here, I'm primarily a makeup artist, and I do makeup for like film, TV, and out here there's a lot of tech makeup. So I've done a virtual reality shoot. So I've seen that camera that has like 200 cameras on it, or 200 lenses and all of that. And I've done, like I said, Udacity, and another place where they had artificial intelligence that was doing stock trading. And it was super cool. And that one was like at the top floor of this building in San Francisco. I could see like the whole world from the office.
That's gorgeous.
But
that goes beyond my skills, but that's gorgeous.
Well, you'll get there. I'm confident. And I think Hamad's confident in you too, or he wouldn't have recommended you to come on the show. So I think you're on your way.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So I've already kind of poo-pooed books, and I didn't mean to, because I love them. I still think they're valuable, and I always ask everyone what their book recommendations are. So it could be something you've read just for enjoyment, something you've learned a lot from, taught you a lesson, whatever you want. But I would love it if anyone finds you interesting, they could check out something else that you found interesting. So if you have any book recommendations to share, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I do read a lot. I would say one is digital gold.
Okay.
So basically, if you're familiar with Bitcoin, it's okay if you're not. It's a cryptocurrency. And I would recommend that everybody digs a little bit deeper into cryptocurrencies. But essentially, it's a story of like the beginning of the cryptocurrency and how it evolved. But what I really like about it is that there's guys that didn't know what they were doing. There's guys that like just 19, 20-year-old kids that had no idea what they were doing that then went on to impact a lot of things. So yeah, that's something that I liked about that book. Again, it's called Digital Gold, Bitcoin, and the Inside Story of the Misfits and Millionaires Trying to Reinvent Money. So it's an interesting read. And then another one, I would say, Jen Sincero, You're a Badass.
Okay.
That's a very popular one. That is one of the reasons that I decided to quit my job. Very, very impactful. And I'm not big on self-help books, not at all. Like I think a lot of them just reiterate what was said before, but that book was absolutely beautiful. And then another one, I would say, I don't know, I have a lot of books. I guess I would say Gary Vaynerchuk's hashtag Ask Gary V. I don't have it, otherwise I would have it to show you, but very good book. And like I said, I run a creative agency, and it's not that I didn't know those things, but like he talks about things in a way that most people don't. And I'm not a fan of marketers, to be honest. I know that sounds weird because I kind of am one, but as you're running an agency, you'll notice that a lot of other agencies just stay stagnant. And I like that book because he challenges things and he talks about new things and he's completely open. And I value that. And I did learn a lot from that.
I definitely enjoy Gary Vaynerchuk in a lot of ways, but I'm curious what you think about his like always hustling a million hours a day mentality. Is that pretty indicative of what your life is like, or what do you think about that?
Yeah. So I would say you have to know yourself. And I think I meet a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, people that want to be entrepreneurs because they see that. And then you look at them and you know that's not them. They would not do well in that situation. And I think it's just all about knowing yourself. I do work a lot. I work a lot, and I don't sleep that often, but that's just me. But I met with a spiritual healer and she's like, Q, like you're a cool guy. Like you're very, very happy. I can tell that you're very, very happy, but there's something holding you back. And we just sat down, we talked and we chatted, and basically we came to the conclusion that I work too much and I'm not doing things that make me happy. So whenever something feels good now, I go and do that, despite the fact that I do work a lot. But I love Gary Vaynerchuk. I love his mentality. I love his hustle, but that is on a whole nother level. And not many people can do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hate to be judgmental, but I used to follow him on Snapchat. And after a while, I was just like feeling guilty because I'm like, why am I even watching this right now? I should be working. And then I was like, how is he a dad and a husband? Like, I have never, like, I understand if he doesn't want to share, pictures of his wife and child, but I'm like, when does he see that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's working for him, I guess. So
it is. It's all about that communication.
I'm curious about the spiritual healer. Is that someone you sought out, someone you ran into? Can you tell just a little more in general about that?
Yeah. I was having trouble getting clients. I couldn't land anything. I was feeling like a failure. So I'm like, fuck this. I'm just going to go meet every single human that comes to me, every single person that is in my life. And I just sent out a million emails. I sent out a million DMs, and I just had meeting after meeting. Then at the end of that week, I had 3 clients. But that happened. She's just like, actually, no, that happened. I'm sitting in the coffee shop meeting somebody else, and then I'm talking about Whale, and then she's there, and we're talking to her about how this platform could benefit her. And then we're like, yo, you're cool. Q, you're cool. And then we just, I don't know, it was super random, but it felt good. So it went on from there. That was a terrible explanation.
Nah, it wasn't. It wasn't. And actually it reminded me of something that I wanted to talk about from before, and then something else. So it was perfect. Just like you're meeting her, it happened synchronously. It was perfect. Exactly. You mentioned that you had no clients, and at the beginning of our conversation, you said like everything fell apart. You failed. And first of all, like, thank you for being courageous enough to say that, because I think a lot of people feel social pressure to not really show that, especially with social media. Like, that's everyone's highlight reel, except for those people who whine about everything on social media. I feel like it's mostly those extremes. Exactly. But yeah, I think it's great that, you can just say, well, yeah, it wasn't easy and I screwed up a lot and I'm scared all the time. But how did you handle, the different failures? I see, having no clients, you talked to everyone you've ever met and got a few clients, but in general, I guess.
Yeah. So those failures were very, very difficult for me. So like I said before, like my life was just falling apart, literally falling apart. Like I had nothing. I was laying in my bed crying every day with my dog, like this, like, and I kid you not.
Your sick dog, no less.
Exactly. And I had no money. I had lost everything. So I'm just sitting there and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be running a business. And like, eventually I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm never getting this low again. I'm never going to let any external factors affect me in a way like it has ever again. And I got my ass up and I did my shit, but it was just one continuous failure. And until I got to that point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore, then I was fine. But up to that point, like, it was just one continuous failure. I felt like a failure. I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm not ready to do this, but I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back because I already burned the bridge. I already quit the job.
Okay. So it basically came almost to a mental breaking point where you just couldn't accept it anymore, and that pushed you to
Yeah, yeah.
change your mind and take action.
And it didn't happen. Like I make it sound like it happened right after that, but it didn't. So that happened, and then I'm like, okay, let's do this. I talked to my co-founder. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna get these clients, and we were sending out emails. I would send out like 5 emails a day. I'm like, okay, that's good, guys. We did it, and like nothing would happen. And
Can
I'm
you
like, why is
imagine Gary Vee sending out 5 emails and calling it a day?
Mhm. And that's what I'm saying. Like I I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm like, this
Sure.
isn't working. So I'd send out 10 emails. This isn't working. 20 emails, 100 emails. This isn't working. So I just started meeting with people, and I started like, this is a little different. I've never done this before, so it's kind of
Sure.
funky. But like when we sit down in a coffee shop, like I am very, very quirky. I'm very, very weird. And something that Hamad told me, he's like, Q, what you have, something that you have going for you is that nobody looks like you.
Yeah.
Nobody acts like you. So I run with that. And personal
Yeah.
branding is huge to me. So I sit down with these people, and I just bring value, learn their story, talk to them, get to know them, become their friend. And
Yeah.
then from there, like most of the time, each of us has something to gain. And it's not like I want to be your social media agency. I don't want to be who you're outsourcing to. It's not anything like that. I just want to bring you value, and I want to hear your
Sure.
story. And that's worked for me. It's slower, but it's worked for me.
That's cool. And that is a perfect segue because I said there was something else that I wanted to bring up. And basically, what I was going to ask is how that process went with sending those emails and setting up those meetings. And, were you just like, hey, I need clients. Let me see how I can get you to be a client? Or what exactly did that process look like when you're, just saying, hey, let's meet?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough, like I said before, to work with Milwaukee, which is a major company here.
Yeah.
Everybody in Milwaukee knows Milwaukee.
I
So
know Milwaukee from when I
see,
lived there
see,
2 years ago.
yeah, and that's when I was working for them. So I was fortunate enough to work with them. So I did make a lot of contacts. And I was under a guy named Ian Abston, if you
I
know
know
him.
Ian. Yep.
He's awesome. He's the either the founder or co-founder. Well, I don't actually know. But he just recently departed from Milwaukee to do his
Mm-hmm.
own thing. But when I was working under him, he told me, remember the secretary's name, and always
Mm-hmm.
bring value, and make sure that they remember your name. So I send a bunch of messages when I see things that are relevant. So the virtual reality company, right? I see something that's important, something that's relevant to them. I send that to them. I thought of you, just something simple, just to
Sure.
stay relevant. And I would do that every single day. Every single
Mm-hmm.
day, I would go through my contact list. Every single day, go through my contact list on my phone. Just send as many emails, messages, texts, DMs as possible. And then eventually, let's sit down for coffee. Let's chat. Let's catch up. And most of the time, I wouldn't bring up like, let me run your social media. It would be them that would say that, because they see what I'm doing and my skill set, and it's just me bringing value and being present.
That makes sense. Now, with your methods, I guess, of staying top of mind with people by sending them articles of interest or whatever messages, any sort of communication, just so you're fresh on people's mind. I'm wondering if you had resistance from anyone about meeting, because I feel like people don't do it anymore that much. And I also feel like I have had a few bad experiences that have
Really?
made me not want to go meet people. So there,
Really?
yeah. So I guess since I, most of the time, if I don't have a photo shoot, work from home, I
Mhm.
don't usually like do my hair, makeup, whatever. And I love that I can stay either home or I live by like 5 grocery stores. It just, everything I
Mhm.
need is close unless I'm off on an adventure. And so for me to like get in my car after I've done my makeup and done my hair and drive across town, find a parking spot, because we don't have that app yet, which sounds amazing that you're talking about. I'm sure it exists in this area, but maybe not
It does.
publicly. Okay, send me the link. But for me, it's kind of like a big deal to do all of that. And then I've gone and had somebody who is like, oh, I think I have something that would be interesting for you. And then the next thing I know, they like want me to join their network marketing thing, which I am all for network marketing, but I feel like I would prefer people be more upfront about that. And so I don't know
Yeah.
if anybody who's had similar experiences to me would be like, why does this guy want to meet? So did you have anyone like give you a hard time with doing that, or was everyone pretty receptive because you stayed top of mind in like relevant ways?
Yeah, I have not encountered that, but I do usually when I asked to sit down for coffee, I'm bringing like, I'll promote you here, or let's talk about this, or I want to help you with this. So there's really not any reason. I have had people not answer, which is totally fine. Maybe they have, and I just haven't seen it, but no, not really.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious just because at this point I've gotten so that I'm sort of leery when someone asks me to meet and I'm like, oh, what are they going to try to sell me or get me to sign up for?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There is a lot of that. I get a lot of those messages.
And LinkedIn, I feel like I get a lot that way. And it's just like they say hi and then launch right into a pitch. And I'm like, nice to meet you.
Yeah. I used to be a really big fan of LinkedIn, and I'm actually not anymore. I only use it for advanced search and maybe like some articles, but really nothing.
Yeah, I go in phases where I'll suddenly go and respond to like 100 requests at a time and all the messages at a time. And then I like don't touch it for months and go back to it. I've had some bad experiences with like creepers on LinkedIn, like more than anywhere else.
Really?
And I'm like, this is supposed to be professional, but my listeners have already heard the story, so I'll spare them. But it's pretty ridiculous. I like of all the like I can see Facebook or Instagram or something that's supposed to be more social than professional, but I don't know.
That is really weird. That's really weird.
Yeah. Well, I think that there have been a lot of great takeaways from just the methods that you've used and shared with us. But do you have any other advice, any lessons you've learned that you'd like to pass on to anyone who's listening?
Yeah, I'm not sure on like your demographic, or what your demographic is, but wow. I'm not sure what your listeners' demographic is, but I would say if they are younger or if they're looking to start a business for the first time, something that I went through is that I thought I was ready. I thought I was like this hot ass marketer. Like I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can do that. And that's perfectly okay. Like be on top of the world. When you stop and you decide to do your own thing, you're going to get knocked down a bunch, because I was not ready. And I talk to people all the time. You think you're ready and then you're not ready. And that obliviousness, that is beautiful, because you will learn a lot because of that obliviousness. So just dive into the obliviousness.
I like it. How did you handle the failures when they came?
Move on, because you have to, otherwise you die. So
or you die.
That's the truth though, right?
Do you feel like you were well prepared for failure? I feel like I never was, and so they still like knock me down really hard when I fail.
I go through these periods of really high belief in myself or really, really low. When I am really high, I'm totally fine. When I'm really low, I have to go back to the advice that I left myself. And then I'm back up there.
All right. We're back to I was going to suggest maybe you read You Are a Badass again, but you have your own version.
Exactly.
Coming Out of the Obliviousness by Q. Your next book.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's about all for us, unless there's anything else that you want to share with anyone listening. I think it's been fantastic, though.
No, I appreciate it. I'm sorry that I'm so awkward, but this has been fun.
I don't think you're awkward at all. It's fun.
I appreciate it.
I assure you there have been more awkward interviews. Now people are going to be like, which ones does she mean? That'll be my secret.
There you go.
Thank you so much for your time and everything that you've shared with us.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I so enjoyed that chat, and I don't mean to make myself sound like an old person by saying this, but I think that Quentin certainly has a bright future ahead of him, and I'm really excited to see what happens to him and how he shapes it himself, because it seems like he's wise beyond his years, and I'm excited to have learned so much from him. I absolutely love my role in this podcast and my ability to get to talk to amazing people all the time and hear their stories and learn from them all the time. So Lucky me. But fortunately, I share it with you as well, and so hopefully you will return the favor and kind of pay it forward by sharing this podcast so that other people can hear it and are hopefully inspired to go after their dreams. That is my ultimate goal. Other ways you can help me do that I would really appreciate are to leave a review on iTunes, like I said, to share it with your friends. Make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss any episodes, including this coming Friday, which is Quentin's challenge for us, which I'm excited to share. So make sure you are subscribed, make sure you are sharing it. I really appreciate it. And check out the show notes at www.mandiem.com/episode 87. You can see that video he was referencing from when he hated his job. See if you can identify with that. I bet some of you know what that's like. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the interview. I look forward to more. And as always, have a sparkly day and be bold. Bye-bye.